Hi, I'm a frickin' nutcase, and this is my 2014 Indian Chieftain in, of all colors of course, Indian Red. I'll be doing a little bit of a first impression, first ride today. Picked this up a week or so ago. I've been slowly but surely breaking the engine in. It's been going very, very well. I've had it out for a couple of 1+ hour rides over the last week or so, and probably 1 or 2 more rides, and I'll be ready to take it for its break-in service at 800 kilometers or 500 miles. And the first couple 100 kilometers have been absolutely fantastic. So I thought I'd take you on a little bit of a tour of the bike visually, so you can see what it is. I'll start her off, let you hear her rumble a little bit, and then I'll give you a little bit of my initial feedback on what I think of the bike as I've put the first couple 100 kilometers on it. It was a difficult decision to trade my ST1300 for this. I could not justify having 2 long-distance sort of suitable touring bikes when I can only really ride one and tour on one bike at a time. And this was very much an emotional decision, emotional purchasing decision for me, and I'll walk you through that a little bit as we ride today. So let's get on her and let's start her up. But the only thing I've added, you can see the GPS up there on the handlebars. I haven't got that wired into the bike electrically, but I'm working on that. And I've added the driver's backrest here, which seems to work pretty well to sort of support you as you're going down the road. I kind of like it. On my previous bikes, when I've toured, I've always had a bag on the back of the bike that sort of acted as my backrest while I'm touring. Well, of course, around town, I didn't have that bag, and I guess I didn't realize how much I was missing it until I started riding around town with this on. So it's pretty good. I kind of like it. It's adjustable in height and push, and I'm still playing with those items, obviously, to get a feel for just how I like it adjusted. But I like the looks of the bike. I'm not usually one that goes for form over function, but in this case the form is fantastic, and the function's been pretty damn good. In fact, with the exception of the fact that I haven't been able to open it up and really see what sort of top end she's got, it's definitely slower than the ST, and that I expected, but maybe once I get her broken in and can open the engine up, I might be impressed. I did say there's a lot of torque, there's a lot of sort of off-the-line grunt, and we'll see. Maybe she will have some top-end sort of highway passing power, and we'll see how she goes. So let's fire it up. Kind of a unique startup. I'll take you through the cockpit a little bit. And what you sort of see is that there aren't 2 gas tanks, there are 2 gas caps. Only one is functional. The one on the right is real, the one on the left is just decorative. I'm not quite sure where the jury sits with respect to the big, international start button, but sure enough, when you power that puppy on, one push, she fires up. There's a couple of different ways of firing the bike up, but that's the way I like the best. At that point, there's a kickstand interlock, so I've got the kickstand up. Give the old clutch a push, and I'll just let you hear a rumble. There's all sorts of audio stuff that's available. I won't go through any of that. I'm not sure whether or not you can actually read the little red display in the middle here. That's been a lot of riders complaining that that's not overly visible. And while it could be better, I haven't really had too many complaints. If I do wear polarized sunglasses, it's a little rougher to read, but if I don't, it actually is pretty good. Other than that, the rider information is very good. The speedometer and tachometer are easily visible and clear. Fuel gauge down there on the lower right. Interesting thing, it was a couple of rides in when I noticed that the speedometer isn't linear. It doesn't go from 0 to 200 as it does there evenly. From about 120 on, the rotation of the speedometer needle is not linear with the speed anymore. So clearly it's an electronic speedometer, and the computer somewhere behind the scenes is doing the work. So I'll let you hear a rev a little bit. Alright, let's pull away. The adjustable windshield is interesting. It's got a 4-inch range, and what I find is that the 4-inch range doesn't make a huge mountain of difference in the wind blocking. It just sort of removes a little more wind from the top of the helmet. But it does work fairly well there. I'll slide it all the way up, and I'll let you hear the differences as I do. So fully down. And fully up. You can probably hear a little bit of just the high frequency buffeting going away. I don't notice a huge bit, although it does sort of rob the face shield of the helmet and my full face showy flip up here of any ventilation, and as a result the face shield's probably going to fog up. I normally wouldn't ride this bike with a full face helmet and face shield down, but for the audio today I thought I'd give it a try. So I'm going to put this back down and get a little more airflow, and I suspect you can hear the airflow go a little bit more as well. In an upcoming video I'll probably go through the audio system. I've messed around with this a little bit, not a heck of a lot. I've got the Bluetooth working and the Bluetooth headset. This is actually the first ride I've tried this out. It turned out to be just as I expected, as everything Bluetooth being a major pain in the you-know-what. It was no different to get sort of working, but it seems to be working. I'll try it out a little later on the ride, although I might not video that. So with just over 600 and something kilometers, it's about probably 450 miles on the engine, you can just sort of hear it idling, sort of a lumpy but very throaty idle. Obviously I'm not leaning into her and giving her full power, as I'm still in the break-in. But once you're past 500 kilometers, 300 and something miles, you can use 3/4 throttle for brief periods according to the rider's manual. And I've given it a few blips coming away from lights and rolling up hills, and there's definitely a good amount of power. So two areas I was all set to be not overly impressed with this bike, coming off the ST1300, which is basically, like an early 1990s sport bike DNA grafted into with some more touring friendly ergonomics, was the braking and the handling, and I've been pleasantly surprised with the braking. While not quite up to the class of the ST, it blows my old V-Strom out of the water, and from what I've read, in terms of cruisers, this does pretty good, and that is definitely my impression. I would describe the brakes as pretty good and definitely better than I thought. The other item, while I haven't been doing any canyon carving, at least there's not many canyons to carve in my part of the world here, I have been doing some leaning on it. Again, new tires, cold roads, and I've been surprised by the handling. I was expecting to start scraping hard parts very early as I started leaning over, and I found it's not happening. It's no sport bike for leaning, but I would definitely say its handling limits are much broader than I expected. So I've been very pleasantly surprised on both of those counts, the handling and the braking. The engine, there's lots of torque. I'll get back to you in a couple weeks once I've had a chance to break it in and open her up, but I think I'm going to be quite impressed as well with the engine in terms of its power and its tractability. The gearbox is definitely set up for a short power band, or a short rev band, which I guess is better to describe this. The power band is quite broad, but red line comes on at 5,000 RPMs. Getting used to the cruiser ergonomics took a bit. I'd say it was a couple of rides before I was comfy with the brake, the rear brake pedal, and sort of the reach, if you want to call it that, to the to the gear shift. But it really didn't take me all that long, let's say an hour total riding it in city traffic, of course, stop and go while braking her in to get more of a feel for the ergos. I love the floorboards. I've done some 2-hour-ish rides, and where my previous bikes, my right knee especially, but both knees would ache, and I would need to get off and stretch or rig up highway pegs. I'm not seeing that need here. The ability to really stretch the knees out, move the feet around, has been fantastic. So 2 thumbs up on that. And I guess that's a little bit more of a, this bike compared to a sport touring bike, and how I'm liking the cruiser ergonomics. They seem to be doing very well for me. So I don't know if you were able to hear that, but that other bike was definitely a member of the straight pipe crowd, and that gives me a good opportunity to talk about the sound and the volume level. That said, this bike I believe meets the Caledon and the Oakville requirement, so in that respect I think I'm alright. I love the sound of the bike. It's a good throaty rumble. It's definitely evolved a little bit as the engine and the pipes have had a few heat cycles. I've got a little throatier. And there's a little more of that throaty rumble. I have ordered a few other bits and pieces, namely the passenger backrest and rack, so that when I tour I'll be able to use something to hold my tour bag on, as well as strap on an extra dry bag or two if I need it. So if I wanted to nibble and pick on this bike in the first week or so and first couple of rides, there's really been one major frustration and one sort of curiosity. The major frustration for any of you who spent time on any of the Indian motorcycle discussion groups, the VOG, Chief Forum, and IndianMotorcycles.net, you'll probably have heard about USB issues, and I've got them too. It seems finicky as to whether or not it'll detect my iPod. Sometimes it doesn't. In fact, 2 or 3 rides it hasn't detected it, and about half an hour later, magically the iPod has come on. Very weird. I don't know if it's a loose connection or a flaky firmware, but it's never failed to appear, but sometimes it appears quite late after the ride gets going. I've tried different cables. It's using genuine Apple cables. I don't know if it's a loose connection, a wiggle, so that's a little bit of a frustration. Something I'm going to ask my dealer about during first service, but as I understand it, they just flash the firmware and hope for the best, which at this point, until I get they get more history and more digging into it, the best we can hope for. The other, and I wouldn't say it's even sort of a frustration, it's a curiosity. The other day in traffic, I stopped at a stoplight, and the check engine light came on. When I went to check the code I got, it was cruise control start button stuck, or something along that line. And I had been fiddling with the controls, so maybe I accidentally was pushing and holding the cruise control start button, or either that or it was a completely spurious signal. All in all, I'm really loving the bike. It's an absolutely cracker motorcycle. To borrow a line from Top Gear, the BBC, Jeremy Clarkson, what a machine! And it definitely is that. Just absolutely top notch. Buy it again in a heartbeat. And as I get the engine broken in, I'll get back and give you an update. So we'll wrap this one up. I'm a frickin' nutcase.